I was like 29. And I remember him putting his arm around me, leaning in and saying, the most important thing in business is focus.
Banger line.
Yeah.
You're out at the bar and it's like business titans like focus. It's like, all right, I'm going home.
Welcome to another episode of Our Future podcast. As always, we study the most successful young founders out there and the ideas, tactics, and strategies they use to win in business. My name is Simran Sandhu, and I'm joined by my co-founder and co-host Michael Sakan. And today, we have a special guest joining us. His name's Noah Kerner. He's the chairman and CEO of Acorns, which is a Fintech unicorn that has brought micro-investing to the masses. Now, if there's anyone that falls under the saying, some people are just built different, that would be Noah. At one point, he was the DJ for Jennifer Lopez. He started a few massive agencies where he was credited with building Facebook's first app, the first white label Amazon store, the first credit card to award responsibility rather than spending for students. Along the way, he was the chief strategy and marketing officer at WeWork and sold his last company called Say, which was focused on enabling shareholder access. Now, he's created a giant with Acorns, with millions of subscribers and over $17 billion invested on behalf of users. So, Noah, thanks for taking the time to chat with us. We're really excited to make this happen.
It's my pleasure. It's good to be here, man.
All right. Well, let's just jump right into it. Being a DJ for Jennifer Lopez.
Well, I grew up in the East Village in New York City, so I got into hip hop early. It was kind of all around you. And when I was 13, 14, I got turntables. Lock myself in my bedroom, every night for like 4 hours, as you do when you're obsessed. But I just stayed committed to it. And by 16, I started playing nightclubs, parties, and this kind of thing in the city.
That's so rad.
And then I had some experiences opening for some different hip hop, acts, and ultimately her manager, Benny Medina, and a good friend of mine, said she was looking for a DJ to perform with her and do shows, and we did late night shows and things like that. So I got that opportunity.
So no, you probably don't know a ton about us. So I'll just give you like a brief background. So I'm 23, Simi's 24. We built a media company for Gen Z in the business category. We just didn't think that, the Wall Street Journal or CNBC was really speaking to this modern TikTok using Gen Z. So we created kind of the leading source of business news on these short video platforms and rode the algorithm wave to millions of followers. And then we also built like an agency offering where we helped some really large businesses tap into this emerging sector of TikTok and, marketing through that to young people as well. And I think there's a lot of parallels with your journey and ours, in that you started with an agency that was kind of focused on how do we reach this younger customer that big companies don't understand. And I just think it's such a cool thought point for young entrepreneurs to say, I am this demographic. I'm going to find big brands and show them how to actually speak to people like me. And it's something a lot of young entrepreneurs have done time after time, with us, many years after you. But with every new generation comes another opportunity to show big companies what the heck the young people are up to. So would love to learn more about how you started that agency, maybe how you got your first client, just being, in your early 20s and scrapped it together to eventually work with some of the world's biggest companies.
Yeah, so I guess we're probably brothers from another. Actually, the agency started in music, which made kind of sense. And so helping labels and perform and artists break into new media in new ways, whether it was on the streets or whether it was online or different medium that people kind of were just learning about and didn't really know the different tactics for how to cut through. And we started doing that kind of work. And what became clear to me was there was this opportunity looking at the agency world, there was this opportunity to create an agency focused on a market segment rather than a discipline. Yeah. That was really the insight. Like everybody was doing press or advertising or media buying or events or whatever for everybody. But I felt it's hard to do to focus on one discipline for every single type of consumer.
Right.
Not every time, but a lot of times when you do things, you're not really leveraging the learning and the insights you derive versus focusing on a specific market segment. Every time you do something, you build that that skill set, you build your knowledge, and then the next time you do it, you're better, and the next time you do it, you're better. And so that was what we found. The other big difference was product development and marketing. Our idea was we'd like to control the kind of whole experience and not just be, on the receiving end of a product, but to really be able to create the products that we thought were better for young people.
Awesome.
So you asked the first big opportunity we got to do that was, funny enough, Chase.
Yeah.
And through a series of meetings and circumstances, and frankly some serendipity, we got this challenge of how do we help make Chase more relevant to students. And then that was that you said it's actually called Chase Plus One, but that was the birth of Chase Plus One. And the insight was, in the credit card space, if you're trying to, it's very difficult to make money off of people who don't have money.
Yeah. Yeah.
At the same time, what you knew at the time was that almost it was 92% of customers stuck with their bank for life. So you could look at it through a lifetime value model rather than a year-over-year revenue model. And that led us to Chase Plus One, the idea for which was, let's reward responsibility rather than spending. Since we're talking about people who don't have money so let's reward paying your bill off on time. Every 6 months, you get a bigger reward for paying it off on time for 6 months, passing a credit education quiz, going paperless, all these kinds of good behaviors. So, that was the birth of effectively a financial wellness idea.
Something we talk a lot about on our podcast is whenever you're starting any kind of company, you should work your way up. So find small clients, try to do free work for them, build up the case studies, and then go for the industry giants. In your case, through serendipity, you landed with the industry giant first. So was it a lot of fake it till you make it to come up with what has now become a really, really good idea, something they're still using? And how did you approach it when you were in that situation?
I would say it was early. I mean, that was certainly early on, in the agency's life cycle that we got that opportunity to do that, which was really, and when you do get that opportunity, you better fucking deliver. So that was also, we threw everything at it to make sure we executed at the highest level, at the highest quality level, with the highest level of creativity,
Yeah, it was almost like that pressure helped you succeed of like, there's this big company and all these big wigs in finance and they're giving us this responsibility and like, we have to crush this, right? Like this is the big opportunity for our agency to really like cut its teeth with a big client. So you ended up doing a bunch of other cool stuff. I did love the fact that we're focusing on the Chase example because it comes full circle with your current career, but you were able to exit your agency and, agencies are a great first business. Like obviously like our company was very agency focused. Like we were a content company, but the agency is what drove a majority of our revenue. And we were actually able to exit our business in many ways because we had those consistent recurring revenues. But a lot of agencies, they struggle to exit the business because they're very founder dependent. Like how was that process for you? And how do you think about like maybe agencies and M&A activity and how that could be a path for young founders?
We ended up getting a pretty healthy multiple, but it was a really important moment to see that happen, and I think a moment of validation, and also even though frankly for me I don't think I've ever prioritized money above other things that like purpose and passion and creativity, it did really help set me up.
Yeah.
In a way where I could focus on the things
How old were you at that time?
31, 32.
You've accomplished a lot up to this point, but if I look on paper, it seems like your work has compounded. And so have the relationships you've probably built over time. How did you build your initial network? I know music is an industry where connections are very, very important. Is that something that you approach very methodically, or was that serendipity in play and that just compounded to business opportunities?
Yeah, early it was serendipity. I mean, city life is a little different that way because you're kind of surrounded by academic people all the time. I think my first taste, and whenever I talk to parents, I say, I think it's a really cool thing to send your kids to public school early on. Like I did elementary and middle school, and then my parents sent me to private high school. And when I went to private high school, I got to really see how the other side lives. And that was really interesting for me. I observe people and things very closely, and I'm sort of always watching and learning and taking things in. So I got to see, I got a taste of that. And that, I think that helped form this idea of relationships matter a lot in the world. And who matters a lot. Who matters. So you can accelerate something so fast by who you know. So it might take you 3 months to do something, but I could pick up the phone and 5 seconds later get something done.
Are there one or two people that come to mind immediately that really shaped that early part of your journey?
This was relatively early, but actually the person I ended up co-writing my book with had been the head of Barney's, and he was a mentor in a lot of ways, but he certainly introduced me to a new world and opened up a new world in a lot of ways. And so I got to meet a lot of really interesting people through him. He was one of those people who enjoyed making those kinds of connections. And and actually, when we wrote the book, and I was pretty young, we interviewed 75 amazing people, from Richard Meyer to Tom Ford.
Well, the book's like a great example of using like media and a platform to build relationships, right?
It's a multiplier.
It's another great lesson for young entrepreneurs.
You strike me as someone who's like very observant of like the problems around you, even leaning on your internship experiences. You identify those problems, but then didn't necessarily go pursue them until decades later. And so how do you think about the element of timing when it comes to pursuing new opportunities, and also realizing, hey, because I think a lot of people would listen to this and they think, hey, this seems like such a straightforward problem. Maybe it's not big enough if someone hasn't solved this already. So like, how did you take in that element to say 10 years, 15 years down the road, you know what, I'm going to go build Say, or I'm going to go build Acorns, because I've recognized this is a problem that even in the early part of my career was still important then?
Yeah, I pay close attention to things and people. And I pay close attention to what moves and inspires people, and I kind of collect these learnings. They stay stored somewhere in my mind. Back to the focus, I was realizing as you were asking the question, I had Panasonic as a client, and one night I was out in New York City at having a fun night with the chairman of Panasonic, and I remember him putting his arm around me, and I was like 29. And I remember him putting his arm around me, leaning in and saying, the most important thing in business is focus. And like, for me, that was
banger line.
Yeah.
You're out at the bar and it's like business titans like, focus. It's like, all right, I'm going home.
The most important thing in business is focus. Actually, a funny part about that was we had a funny encounter. I said, but you guys sell turntables and nose hair clippers. And he said, I didn't say we're focused.
Love it.
But yeah.
Well, let's get into Acorns, the founding story. So what I read, it was a father and son kind of like duo who kind of started Acorns, but you got in super, super early and have run the whole thing. You don't have the co-founder title, I guess, but you're pretty much the co-founder. So tell me how that all transpired. This business idea of Acorns.
Yeah. So actually, I took a little break, which I highly recommend. There was a point where I felt like I just needed to take a little break and reset. And at some point during that process, I ended up reconnecting with the original head of sales from Facebook, who we used to work with when I had Noise. And I was talking to him about some ideas I had and thinking about what I was going to do next. And he said, I got to connect you to this young guy, Jeff, who was building this thing, Acorns. And he told me about it. And he goes, and it's so closely aligned to the way you were thinking about Chase Plus One many years ago. And by the way, it was the first, Chase Plus One was the first thing to launch on Facebook that wasn't Facebook. And he connected us, and it was immediate kind of simpatico. And we shared, I think, a worldview. We shared a sense of design, aesthetic. We shared a lot of philosophies, and it just kind of organically happened that we started working together. I was like originally just mentoring him a little bit as he was starting to do Acorns, and then got him. He invited me to run and build the company. But it was very early. I think if you're going to call yourself a founder, it's like the beginning of the idea,
Mm-hmm.
you should be there from really the beginning of it. So I don't call myself a founder, but I think it was basically zero revenue at the
And
time.
you were just like, I'm all in. Like, I'm gonna invest in this. I'm gonna become an advisor. And they're just like, all right,
Yeah,
you should just be the CEO. Like, you should just run this whole thing for us.
it just unfolded. It just unfolded pretty naturally that way. And he was young, you know, and I think once we got to know each other, he felt like I could carry the company forward and it's a very unusual story because it tends not to work out. In fact, almost all of the time it doesn't work out, but it did work out. We subsequently started another company called Stay Together. That was, from the beginning. By the way, one of the other funny things is I think a lot of good things come from aggravation. Like a lot of great companies come from a source of aggravation with something. Say was born out of aggravation. We at Acorns, we were trying to send out really good proxy communications, investor communications, and there just wasn't a way to send them out. And the emails were just, they were not well designed, and they would go and like. So we started Say because of pure frustration with the way we were being served at Acorns. And then it was a sort of a broader idea about shareholder communications and inviting people to use the power of their vote.
Were you guys the first with this micro investing model?
I think so. I think we were the first with a lot of things.
Yeah. And fintech is historically and still is up to this point a space with a lot of red tape, a lot of traditional institutional players that don't want to change. So when you came in trailblazing with this new model, how receptive were they? Well, how did you kind of break through the ice there?
Well, everything is a bad idea until it's proven to not be a bad idea. So, I mean, I think that was that was the case with just about everything we've done that is new in some way in the category, whether it's micro investing, whether it's focusing on education, whether it's a subscription model. This is credit to Jeff. The core nugget of Acorns in the beginning idea and hook was spare change. And when you're talking about money, the way financial services used to connect with people around this idea would be, instead of buying a coffee, take the few dollars and do X with it, save it, whatever. This was, you don't have to skip the things you enjoy, the little life's luxuries. While you're doing that, we're going to invest your spare change. And so that was a really smart idea. It was a really smart idea. It was something really relatable. And even today, it still resonates when it's actually still one of our very fundamental messages that we market to the world, because it's really easy to understand. Yeah. Everybody has spare change in your pockets and your cup holder and lying around in your couch. And it's small enough where it's not intimidating.
Yeah.
So it's easy for people to get started.
How do you think about product extensions and when to pull certain levers? Because you guys have a roadmap, tons of incredibly smart people working for you. You know all the potential use cases or paths that you can take. So how do you think about that?
Yeah, it comes back to focus. And the other thing, when you're a consumer company, you have to think very hard about what your brand represents in consumer psychology, in consumers' psyche. And in our case, Acorn stands for saving and investing small amounts of money, spare change and otherwise. And so I think about the product roadmap through the lens of how do we maximize that for people as much as possible and make sure we stay true to that idea. Because, and we've seen this, when you introduce something that is not in keeping with that idea on Acorns, people go, why is Acorns doing this? And that happens all over. Like, why are you doing that? Why are you doing, that's not what I'm here for. I'm not here. I'm not here for debt or insurance. I'm here to save and invest as much as possible. So make sure whatever you add into that experience comes back to that central purpose. I think if you can construct a vision and a roadmap that stays really focused on that idea, you'll have more success. Back to consumer psychology again, it's hard for people categorize you, so you start to represent this one idea. Right. You want to represent another idea. That takes a lot of money in branding and rebranding and repositioning, and if you want to represent five things, it's expensive if it's possible at all.
you said $30 a month, right? That roughly is what ends up being contributed on average for
The spare change.
Yeah, spare change. But your guys' business model is people pay $3 a month, right? So how did you think about that as well? Like, we obviously, like, you want to run a for-profit business and you have to think about margins, but you don't want to charge anything that's materially just too much, or to the point where, again, it becomes a big enough expense if people are categorizing you in certain ways.
Yeah, so actually we have $3, $5, and $9 a month plans. I'll start with 9 and go backwards because that's the most expensive. And I'll say, well, I'll answer this question in a couple ways. The first is the industry couldn't figure out how to serve this customer, because when you have small amounts of assets and the industry model is an assets under management fee, you're just never going to focus on people who don't have a lot of assets because you can't make money off of them.
Yeah, makes sense.
So from a starting point, there was nobody serving this market, and there will be nobody serving this market with that model. So the question is, how do you build a sustainable business to serve people who don't have a lot but need these kinds of services? So I'll start with we actually just started rolling out the $9 tier, and it is the first family plan and family financial wellness plan in financial services. And I don't know if you know, we just bought GoHenry, which is the leading kids money product in the UK, and PixPay, which is the leading teen money product in the EU. And what we're doing with the $9 tier is we're bundling all these products so that you as a parent can get all the products you need, and you can get all the products your kids need to start learning about money, developing money skills. You get an allowance card that the parent can load money on and reward the kid for doing chores and learning about money. The kid gets a savings account. Obviously, we have an investing product for kids, and then everything in between. So it becomes a family financial wellness plan. On top of that, all of the learning content, education material that goes with all of the things we do. So we don't think about it as, and it's not just an investing assets under management thing. It's actually a $9 a month plan for the whole family to help you and your kids get smarter with money and build a better future. So that's the $9 tier. And then down to the $3 tier. The $3 tier has a whole bunch of services and products that come with it. Spare change investing is one of them. But education, getting smarter with your money, getting smarter about finance generally is also a core part of the service. So we think about it like, I think in a very different way. It's a subscription model where each tier you get a series of products, you get education, you get services, you get intelligence, that, more automation that will ultimately become part of it. And then you end up with 3 tiers that through which people can ladder up, with the highest one being for the whole family. So, but the question I ask back at people when they ask me this question is, well, what about the 98% of people who don't get services to help them do this? Like, what are we doing about
it?
We have to build a business that can do that.
Is that the only business model? Is just these $3, $5, $9 subscriptions?
Pretty much, yeah. We have a debit card, so we make a little bit of interchange, but it's very, very small. Like, yeah, subscription is 90+% of our revenue.
Got it. So just to round things out, this has been an awesome conversation, Noah. You guys recently raised another $300 million in a Series F in 2022. You guys have raised a ton of money. I'm sure an IPO is in the cards. Valuation of the business. You're going against companies that are worth, Bank of America, JP Morgan, right? They're massive, right? You're trying to be like the number one place where people keep their money. Is that the vision, right? Like, you want to get to a level where you have as many customers keeping their money in Acorns as these other big banks? Is that where you guys need to be?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's not necessarily where we need to be, but the financial wellness system vision and that idea is very much rooted in ultimately move your paycheck to Acorns, and we will make sure the money's moved to the right places, and that you're accumulating emergency savings, retirement savings, that you're investing, that you're setting aside money for your kids with our great kids products like GoHenry. By the way, and this is another, I hope this isn't a shameless plug, because I actually think this is a wonderful product for anybody with kids. Go Henry's amazing, to help your kids learn money skills. But making sure if you're a parent, automatically setting aside money for your kids and for their future, that experience that we are building toward will be the core experience of Acorns. And it will be the reason why you should move your paycheck to Acorns, because we're going to make sure we're putting your paycheck to work better than anybody else.
You're really going all in on this kids thing, and it makes sense, because if all those kids become, customers of Acorns one day, look at that, right? Like, you've found the best way to acquire customers, because fighting for checking accounts, what a nightmare, right? Like, look at the crazy CAC involved. I recently did a story on the founder of Intuit, and it's like, people hate changing money platforms. Like, it's like the hardest thing for fintech companies to do is these customer acquisition costs, right?
Yeah. So I'll tell you the vision. I mean, starting with Acorns early, we have a product beginning at birth. Go Henry is really, although it does extend up a little bit, it's really for 6 to 12. PixPay is for 13 to 17, and then Acorns is for 18 and on. And so we have this life stage structure where we can, and I think we're uniquely positioned because we have great products for all of those life stages, uniquely great products for all of those life stages. So we will be focused very much on moving people through those life stages, graduating them on to the different products. Then ultimately you become a parent in the cycle.
One last question before we wrap up. We talked to a lot of founders who've successfully exited a company, and the vast majority of them say that they were great early stage CEOs, but they've decided to step down when the business got to the next level or they expanded. And so the question that I have is, how did you shift your mindset to say, hey, not only am I apt to handle the challenges at the early stage, but also now as you guys think about going public, like, I'm still the right guy to continue lead the ship, and like shifting your mindset around that?
I'm a New York City kid, so I am comfortable being uncomfortable.
Okay.
So, you grew up in all kinds of, if you think about the entire trajectory of my career, like nothing I've done has been the same as the thing I did before. So I love uncomfortable situations, and I love being challenged. That for me is one of the great motivators. So every new phase of the company, in a way, is a new challenge to tackle, and it's a new opportunity for me to learn and grow. That's not to say that I'm going to be doing this with Acorns forever. And if there's somebody to do it better, or in the seat that I think would be better, but I don't view stages of things as things to walk away from. I view each of these things, whether it's a new category, whether it's a new stage, whatever it is, a new challenge, is something to learn and grow from, get better from, and then pass on. Like the reason I'm doing this, to be able to pass on this kind of insight and hopefully inspiration to other people.
That's a hell of a ride. 2013, 2014 to today, that's a long, long time. And, I'm excited to see what happens. It seems like you're still excited and you enjoy, leading this ship, and you have a great mission. So, we're here for it. And we just want to thank you again for your time, Noah, because it's been an awesome interview, and we both of us really, really enjoyed it and getting your perspective. Fantastic.
Congrats to you guys. It's congrats to you guys on what you're building, what you built, what you're going to build, and hopefully the amazing.
Thank you, everybody, for listening to that episode with Noah Kerner. I know it wasn't our usual kind of episode with like talking about young founders or having some crazy exited founder who, has a big personal brand or whatever. I really enjoyed it because there are different paths in entrepreneurship. Leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, iTunes, like on YouTube, and thanks again, everybody.
Stay frosty.
Stay frosty. Peace. So these young entrepreneurs, Eric and Will, have built this company called Carrot, and it's a credit card for content creators. They've built it to a valuation in the hundreds of millions without spending any money on marketing.